The observation deck of the Celestial Harmony hummed with the usual symphony of alien life clicks, whistles, and the occasional subsonic rumble that made the metal floors vibrate. Dravik, the station's security chief, stood with his forearms crossed, his chitinous plating reflecting the soft blue light of the corridor. His compound eyes fixed on the scene before him with what could only be described as profound confusion. "Explain this," he said, his translator rendering his mandible clicks into flat, emotionless words. Myra Lorne sat cross-legged on the floor of the xenobiology observation room, her back against the transparent barrier. Curled up on her worn leather jacket were three Carvathy Cubs apex predators from a death world where the gravity alone would crush most species. Their scales, still soft with youth, rose and fell with gentle breathing. Tiny claws, capable of rending steel when fully grown, were tucked beneath their bodies. One cub's tail was draped across Myra's lap. "They were tired," Myra said simply, not looking up from her datapad. "I gave them somewhere comfortable to sleep." Dravik's translator couldn't quite capture the incredulous hiss he made. "Those are Category 5 predators. The parents are currently restrained in reinforced containment because they tried to breach the hull yesterday." "The adult Carvathy tried to breach the hull," Myra corrected, finally glancing up. Her brown eyes held that particular brand of human stubbornness that Dravik had learned to recognize over their 3 months working together. "These are babies." They were scared and exhausted. "The holding cells are too bright, too loud. They couldn't rest, so you removed them from containment?" "I got permission from Dr. Zeltos," Myra said defensively. Mostly? He said I could observe them through the barrier." "I may have interpreted that liberally." Dravik's secondary arms twitched a sign of stress among his people. He had read the human dossiers when the Galactic Council first introduced humanity to the wider universe. Persistence predators, endurance hunters, social pack animals with an inexplicable tendency toward self-sacrifice and adoption of other species. The files had seemed exaggerated at the time, propaganda perhaps, to make the newcomers seem less threatening. Now he understood. Humans weren't threatening in the way the Council had feared. They were threatening in ways no one had predicted. "The cubs were supposed to be sedated," he said. "They were. But the sedative dosage was calculated for adult metabolism. Dr. Zeltos didn't account for juvenile resistance." Myra stroked the nearest cub's head with 2 fingers, scratching behind the ridge where its auditory sensors lay. The creature made a sound like rocks tumbling in a leather bag contentment, according to the xenobiology database. "They were fighting the sedation, getting more agitated. It was cruel, so you decided to simply let them sleep on you?" "On my coat, technically," Myra smiled. "They kept trying to burrow into the corner where the cleaning staff left a pile of maintenance rags. I figured they wanted something soft, something that smelled alive. Predator cubs usually do." Dravik consulted his wrist-mounted display. The Carvathy homeworld had been classified as uninhabitable by 17 different species. Atmospheric pressure, gravity, ambient radiation, aggressive megafauna, the list went on. Humanity had labeled it challenging but manageable and established a research outpost within a year. Of course they had. When their parents discover you've been handling their offspring, they already know. Myra gestured to the observation window where 2 massive Carvathy adults watched from the adjacent chamber. Each was the size of a ground transport vehicle, all muscle and armored hide and teeth. Their I-6 each, arranged in a hexagonal pattern, tracked every movement Myra made. Dravik felt his respiratory spiracles constrict. "They should be trying to kill you through the barrier." "Yeah, that's what I thought too." Myra shifted slightly, careful not to disturb the sleeping cubs. "But look at their stance. Heads lowered, tails neutral, third eyelids partially closed. That's monitoring behavior, not aggression. They're watching me watch their kids." It was true. The adult Carvathy, who had hospitalized 3 security officers and demolished a containment cell just yesterday, were simply observing. One of them made a low-frequency sound that Myra's translator couldn't parse. "How did you know they wouldn't attack?" Dravik asked. Myra shrugged. "I didn't really, but I figured their parents. Smart parents from what we've observed. They'd tried everything to calm their cubs down, Brought them food, groomed them, even moved them to different parts of the cell. Nothing worked. The babies were stressed. She looked down at the sleeping forms on her jacket. So I showed the parents that I wasn't a threat, sat with my back to them, made myself vulnerable. Let them smell me through the ventilation system. Don't Dr. Zeltos. I recalibrated the air exchange. After about an hour, I opened the interior barrier just enough to slide my jacket through. You gave Category 5 predator cubs your scent, and they brought it back to their corner and nested in it. Then they got curious, came to the barrier, started making these little chirping sounds. I think it means safe or maybe comfort in their language. The parents didn't object, so I opened the barrier a bit more. Dravik's threat assessment algorithms were screaming warnings. His training, his instincts, everything logical in his consciousness said this was insane. But the evidence before him told a different story. You know what the council is going to say, he said quietly. That humans are reckless, emotional, that we don't follow proper xenobiological safety protocols. Myra's smile was wry. Yeah, I've heard it before, that we should never have uplifted a species that treats apex predators like pets. We don't treat them like pets, Myra's voice was firm. We treat them like what they are, intelligent beings with families and fears and needs. These cubs needed comfort. I provided it. Their parents recognized that I was trying to help, not harm. One of the cubs stirred, making a small mewling sound. Myra hummed softly something Dravik's translator identified as an ancient human lullaby. The cub settled. Dr. Zeltos will file a report, Dravik said, though his conviction was waning. Probably. But he'll also note that this is the first time the adult Karvathi have been calm since we brought them aboard, and that the cubs are finally getting the rest they need for proper development. Myra met his eyes. Sometimes the rules need adjusting, Dravik, especially when we're dealing with species we barely understand. Dravik stood there for a long moment, watching a human fragile by galactic standards, with no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced senses, serving as a napping spot for creatures that would someday be able to hunt and kill most known sentients. And he realized the files had been wrong about humans. They weren't persistent predators who had conquered their death world through aggression. They were persistent empaths who had survived by finding common ground with everything they met. Even baby monsters needed their sleep. I'll delay my report, Dravik said finally. For observational purposes? Myra's grin was radiant. Thanks, Dravik. Want to pull up a chair? They'll probably wake up in an hour wanting food, and you should see how cute they are when they're eating. Dravik's translator gave up trying to express his resignation. He pulled up a chair. Perhaps he thought the galaxy would survive humanity after all. Or, perhaps more terrifyingly, humanity would make the galaxy better. The cubs slept on, dreaming whatever dreams young predators dream, warm and safe on a human's coat.